Welcome to the Happy Library Part 2, Crafting Effective Library Signage. My name is Shelley Ziegler, and I am a library consultant here at the Mississippi Library Commission. If you have not viewed Part 1, which I recorded last year, please do so before watching this webinar. Everything will make more sense and flow easier if you do that. I have included a link to that webinar. It lives on our YouTube page, and that's also where we keep all of our virtual trainings as well. So it is a great resource for you. So watch that and then come back. A real quick overview of Part 1. These are things that are, I would say, takeaways from Part 1. Avoid negative language in your signage. Negative language are strong words like can't, don't, just strong verbs that are telling someone what they cannot do. Negative language focuses on the consequences rather than the positive atmosphere that we are all trying to convey in our public libraries. And choose an appropriate font. In Part 1, I do talk about various fonts and which ones are not as professional. Signs are living documents. Like humans, they are meant to change, evolve, and adapt. So don't stick a sign up somewhere and let it live there for 20 years. It probably needs to either come down or be edited. Too much is too much. If you have too many signs, especially if you have them in one area, they are all going to be ignored. Because as humans, if there's too much visual stimuli, we tend to shut down. Think about that in your life. And then signs are touch points. And a touch point is simply a point of contact or interaction with your library. You might have heard touch points referred to in my colleague Lacey Ellenwood's customer service trainings. A touch point can be defined as any way consumers interact with a business organization, whether it's person to person, whether it's through your website's a touch point, an app, or any form of communication. The way you send emails is a form of touch point. It represents your library system. So consumers connect with these touch points and they consider their perceptions of the business based on how they interact with the touch points. So you want positive signage, because if it's a very negative signage, that is how they're going to view your library. And lastly, evaluate. It is so important to consistently be evaluating your signage, just as you consistently evaluate your collection. If you would, take a look at this busy airport. There's a lot going on. Imagine you have just flown into this airport and you're getting on a connecting flight and you only have 15 minutes to get to your flight. Signage is your friend. Signage will get you there. Bad signage will make you miss your flight. Good signage will get you to your flight on time. So look again and just look at all the signage that is there, because I think that we forget just how much we depend on signage to go about our daily life. The signage is all over, and it is all necessary. So, why is library signage important? Well, it sets the tone, as I referred to in the touch points. The tone of your signage is going to be how your patrons perceive your library. If you have sarcastic, very harsh signs, that's how they're not going to feel comfortable. That's how they might even be afraid and not come back. And it not only sets the tone for your particular branch, but for the entire system. People will think of the entire system the way they just view the one branch that they go to. And good signage will eliminate a lot of basic questions. Where's the restroom? Where's the copier? Things like that. And we all are comfortable in libraries. You know, we know the basic setup. I mean, it varies from library to library, but it is for someone who is not a regular library user, and that's how you need to look at your signage. It can be a very hefty task to navigate a library, and it's also very intimidating. And I think we as librarians we forget that, because our libraries are often used by patrons that have never been to a library or your library, or they haven't been in years, and it's very overwhelming. It can appear like that busy airport to them. And a lot has changed in libraries. What someone, if they went to their library back when they were in high school, and they're my age, they would be looking for a card catalog. And we don't have those unless people just collect them because they're beautiful. Humans are also conditioned to look for signage. We expect signage, and when it's not there, we feel lost. So I'm going to focus on 3 types of signage that I see that are the major types in libraries. Promotional, policy, and directional, which is also called wayfinding a lot. It's just a fancier term for that. And I'll go into detail on those when we get to them. So first, let's look at promotional. This is the type of signage that uses language and design to entice your patrons to do something. Typically, it's to attend a library event, but you might be promoting a new library service. Anything that you want to bring to the attention of patrons that they might want to be a part of. So what information do you include on a sign? And before I go into this slide, I will say that it is ideal to use the least amount of words as possible on a sign. Why? Because patrons and humans, we have a very short attention span, and I feel like it's only getting shorter. If there is a huge paragraph, we will just not read it. That's why it's also best when you're doing social media to keep it as short as possible, because if you don't, people just aren't going to read it. And the same goes for signs as well. So when you're doing a promotional sign, the key things to put is, what is the event? What is the name of the event? And maybe describe it. When is the event? The date, the time, and where is the event? If you are a multi-branch system, you should put the name in perhaps city that the event is occurring in. Here are 2 examples of promotional signage. You will notice that I put, there are some black lines through these examples because I did get them from actual library systems. I just thought it would be better to just take out their names. So let's look at this teen time. So it is very eye-catching. I love those colors. it stands out. It says what they're doing. They're having games, arts, and snacks. It gives the dates, June 12th through July 24th. And it gives just a little description. And then at the bottom, it does have for more information, which I should have blacked out. But I'm only speaking well of them, so I hope they're not upset. The second one is the book swap. You'll see it has the dates, it has the time, it has the where. They're saying at the children's library. Now there is a lot of description there under the swap guide, but that is essential information so people know how the swap works. So these are both excellent examples. Here are two other promotional flyers. This Book to Big Screen Club, it's not a bad flyer. It's really not at all. And I don't mean to convey that. It is attractive. It is eye-catching for sure. It has the dates, it has the time, and it has the ages. It does not have the where though. But the only problem I have with this one is that it is very busy. It has a lot of graphics. Graphics are great. Clip art can work. It's best to use actual photos if you can get them. You can get real photos without the watermarks on them from if you use Canva, which is actually what this presentation was made on. But it's just, there's a lot going on, and I might delete a couple of those graphics so it's not so busy, so it's not so visually overwhelming. Now let's look at this door. This door, sadly, has been in a couple of presentations I've seen about signage. It is a lot. If I was walking into a library and I walked by this door, I would probably not read any of it because it's just too much. It's like getting a text from somebody and it's just like 2 paragraphs. I just don't think I would read it all. I think I might skim it if it's someone important, but your patrons, if they walk by this, nothing stands out. So typically when you group things together, you see everything as a whole. You don't see you don't see them as individuals. So I would not put a bunch of signs on a door or a wall like this. If you feel it's necessary to have all these signs, put them in separate places, put one here, but I do not recommend this at all. All right, let's talk about policy signage. This is the type of signage that uses language to inform and enforce a policy passed by a board of trustees, your library board of trustees. If your patrons are not aware of a policy, how can you hold them accountable to it? There are ways to make your patrons aware of policies in a friendly, positive manner. It doesn't have to be do not, will not, don't, stop. It does not have to be negative. What you want to think about is your actual message. What is the intent of the sign? For example, do you want to ensure that patrons know that a certain area of your library is a quiet area, it's a study area, and you want to direct them to another area? Well, in your sign, don't say quiet area, no talking, no cell phone, blah, blah, blah. Direct them to an area of your library that's not a quiet area. Do you want to inform patrons about library fines? I've seen that. Policy signs, they do not have to be negative. You might even post a policy sign that states like, happy days, the library is now fine free. because they may not know about that, and that will probably entice them to use your library more. Avoid passive aggressive or negative language. Passive aggressive language and negative language, it does not lend itself to the nature and the intent of libraries. We want people to feel comfortable, to feel like this is like their third place. We want them to come back. Humor. Let me talk about humor a little bit. I know that it is often intended with the best intentions. It rarely translates well in signage. And to be honest, a public library signs, it's not the appropriate place to put humor. It's not professional. Think about text messages and emails. When someone, if you don't know them and they use dry humor, for example, oftentimes it does not translate, and the feeling of the person receiving that message can be totally off than what the person intended. So I would avoid humor. I like humor, I love it, I just don't think it's appropriate in your library signage. Here are a couple of examples. This first one, the smile, you are on camera. We frequently take photos of people at our programs. If you have any issues or concerns, please let us know. Thank you. This sign is from the Hancock County Library System. I took it when I was on a site visit because I thought it was a great example of a positive sign that also informs and gives the person an out if they do not want to be photographed. It's not condescending, it's cheerful. I like it. I like everything about it. This next one, no running in the library. This rule is in effect until we clear out books and make space for the fitness room and indoor track. So it's not a do not come here, do not run. It does say no running, but it says it, but it's the way it says it. And it is cute, it's bright, it does use clip art, but I'm okay with it here. It explains why there's no running in the library, because their space is limited. And it conveys a positive message about new things, new services that are coming to this particular library. I have yet to see a library with a fitness room and indoor track, but I think that would be great. Okay, now these I do have issues with. This first one, danger. No food or drink next to this computer, or beware the wrath of the library director. It is funny. It does convey the policy, the message, but it insinuates that there are dire consequences, and that's not what we want our signage to convey. Public libraries rarely have anything going on that there's a dire consequence. I think I understand the intent of the person who posted this, but I think it will not be received well. The next one, no food or beverages allowed in this area. I have several issues with this. The two different colors of font, I don't think that's necessary. And why is no and allowed in all caps? Just like texting and emails, when you use all caps, you are essentially screaming, yelling at people. I do not recommend all caps. I know that people like it because they think that patrons will see it better, but the feeling the patron will have will not be good, and they may not return. All right, let's talk about directional / wayfinding. This is a type of signage that acts like, I like to say, an invisible hand, maybe on your back, guiding patrons from wherever they are to their destination. So perhaps they come in, they have their child with them, and they're here for story time, but this is their first time in the library. Signage will help them find the children's area and find where story time is. Wayfinding is a formalized terminology and concept, and it is about knowing where you are, where you're headed, how you're going to get there, how you're going to know that you're there when you get there, and what's needed to get there. Am I going to need to go up some stairs? If I cannot navigate stairs, is there an elevator? How to find your way around a place and out of a place. Have you ever been someplace where you could not figure out how to get out? That happened to me very recently, and it was in a very large building with multiple floors, and it was very hard to get out of the building. And I did have to ask somebody, and then I had to go way back where I came, and the signage was not ideal. Wayfinding enables humans to problem solve and move around by using consistent environmental cues. So if you have consistent, good, simple signage, those are environmental cues for humans to figure out in their brain, okay, I need to go to the nonfiction section because I need a Malcolm Gladwell book, and I'm not sure. Okay, there's the sign. That's where I'm going. Here are two examples of directional signage that I like. The nonfiction one, it's easy to read, and it has really good contrast. Contrast is very, very important. If that font color of those numbers was, let's say, a light yellow, there would be no point even having the sign, because you can't read it very well until you're right up on it. And I like that it is in a plastic holder. I'm sure there's a more formal word for that. I talk about those in part 1 of the Happy Library. But the sign can be taken out and updated as you shift the collection and weed the collection. So that is important as well. Also, I like that there's just enough information. There's the information that you need. And there aren't any graphics because there doesn't need to be. Then I like this nonfiction sign with the arrow. There is a map of the building. It looks like it is maybe a 2-story building with a basement, or a 3-story building. And if I was to walk in, I have 2 options there. If I am looking for that Malcolm Gladwell book, I can say, oh, nonfiction, that way. And then hopefully I will see it, or there'll be another sign. And depending on the size of the building, you might need multiple signs to help people find their way. Remember, that invisible hand. Okay, let's look at these. There's a lot to talk about here. Okay, this first picture on the left, first there are 3 signs on a door. And as I said before, grouping signs together does not work. The visual stimuli is too much, and people will not read it at all, even if you put it in all caps. The please do not put carts in front of this door. This is a fire emergency exit. Now that is important information. Um, does it need to be underlined as well? Probably not. The do not enter in all caps. You are yelling at people. Library staff only, please. This sign has started to fold over, so either it wasn't put up with enough tape or it is old. Now, a good solution here is you could just have one sign for all these signs, and that should be your goal, to have simple signs, not overloading people. A good sign would be one sign saying, "This is a fire emergency exit. Please do not block." It doesn't have to be in all caps. It needs to be big enough that people can read. It needs to have good contrast. And that's it. You do not need the rest of it. This second one here, the circulation sign, which looks like it's a nice professional sign. I don't like that it's so high up on the ceiling, because that is hard to see. People, if you're getting close to it, you have to look up like that. I'm not a big fan of how high up on the ceiling it is. The use of official library terminology is not recommended. That's acronyms, terms that librarians use. Like, we all know what reserves are, what ILL is, what circulation means. But if someone was to come in your library and they haven't been in the library, or they just haven't been much in a library and they just don't know much about libraries, they may not know what circulation means. Now, I do like that it says information, but what I would suggest is you take away circulation, reserves, and ILL and just put information. And that really conveys everything you need. If you need information, this is the place to go. And that's it. I would like to address using symbols in signage, like the do not symbol. Proceed with caution. That is what I would suggest. Symbols are great because they are helpful for individuals that do not speak English, but if you use them too much, or if they're too big, they have a harsh connotation. So they are not, I'm not saying no, don't ever use them. Just saying proceed with caution when you do use them. And I have some final thoughts about this webinar. Just kind of some take-home thoughts. Less is more. Remember that. That means less is more in terms of the wording on your signs and how many signs you have. When you are going to put up a sign, think about this. Is the sign necessary? Are you responding to a patron problem that could be resolved by just speaking to the patron instead of putting up a sign for everybody? Visual contrast. This is so crucial. Like I said earlier, with the sign where I said if you would put like yellow font, you couldn't read it. It's really important to look at your contrast. Think about your patrons' perceptions and experience of your library. Get outside of your library mindset, because of course it all makes sense to us, but and this is my suggestion, do a walkthrough of your library with the mindset of a patron and look at your signs. And one, can you locate an area of the library if you were not familiar with the library? And two, are the signs attractive? Are they professional? Are they handwritten? I talk about handwritten signs in my first webinar. So those are the final thoughts I have. But before I end, I want to encourage you to commit to doing one small task with your signage in your library. And it can be lots of things, anything that you have gleaned from this presentation. As I said before, do a walkthrough of your library. Better yet, ask a family member or a friend to do the walkthrough, because they will see things that you don't see because you're looking at it every day. Eliminate old signs. Maybe they just need to be updated. They can say exactly the same thing, but they just need to be updated. Do a formal signage audit. I detail the signage audit process in the Happy Library Part 1. And perhaps stop using so much clip art. People respond better to real photos. And again, I do know that you can get a lot of real photos in Canva. Like there's so much. It's wonderful for creating flyers. And we have a webinar from our PR director, Christina Kelly, about using Canva. So if you need to watch that, that will be helpful. Just do small, consistent steps to improve the user experience. We're not all perfect. Our signs aren't going to be, stellar all the time. Sometimes you're going to have to put up a sign at the last minute, so it may not look so great. But overall, be consistent with good, professional, clean, clear signage. I look forward to visiting your libraries and being amazed by your library signage. If you need any further assistance or have questions about signage, it is a passion of mine, and I would love to talk about it and help you with any questions that you have. So have a good day, and thank you.